Welcome, Sexy Wookiees, to another episode of the Sexy Wookie Squadcast. We are concluding Star Wars Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray. This week's chapters are the final chapters, 31 through 38. There is no death. There's only the Force. It's your boy, Sexy One.
Hey, your girl, Sexy One. Wait a minute. Okay, I'm
Whoops.
Sexy Leader this week. Hey.
Yeah.
Hey, it's your simp Sexy too.
Always the same.
Let's go.
I'm a professional simp. I have to let people know. I respectfully simp, so.
Own it.
All right, ready?
All right.
Ready?
So, what are your thoughts on, how do you pronounce her name? On Halen?
Oh.
I just
We've-
said Alan.
Been through this, I forgot what we agreed on.
Who knows?
What are your thoughts on Halen surrendering?
Huh. Yeah, I guess it was the thing that worked, right? She got to actually get her message straight to the person that she wanted it to without it being like overly theatrical and diluted in big, a show, and special effects or whatever. She just got to talk to the regent and say, like, here's my evidence, here's what we found out, you take it from here. That's how you know to trust us, because I'm here, so you go check out this other thing. We're not equipped to do it. And then that was just the end. That was the end of the opposition. They never appeared in the book again. So I was like, what the heck was the point of this whole tangent anyway? Like, they just turned out to be nothing. And then I don't know, I guess the only thing they contributed was that they figured out where one of the Blackguards' hideouts were on the planet. So yeah, that's something that nobody else had done. But other than that, I'm like, I don't even know what the point of them was. Like,
They kind of felt like the middleman, like the messenger.
yeah, but the whole them being in the mix for most of the book, and like, are they the ones behind all this, and what are they going to do next, and how can a theatrical troupe cause so much trouble, and what is it that they really want? This whole element of intrigue that they added turned out to not matter at all. So it was just a big red herring. And I was like, oh, now it kind of feels like a waste of my interest. Like, they could have just not been in this book and it wouldn't have made a difference. But no, I think I was like, finally, that's like the smart move. Like, this whole pulling pranks and public demonstrations and stuff obviously was not working. But when she came and in person presented her case and talked to somebody, I mean, it did help that Qui-Gon was there and kind of knew her side of the story already. But that worked. So I was like, there you go. Smart.
Yeah, I'll go with you also. It's just it was just to give Qui-Gon clarification of who they were and what they were, but they didn't really have a big impact on really anything. I was hoping there was going to be more of them, like, I don't know, just a group of them to kind of like revolt against the whole the government, or it had something to do with the treaty, whatever it was. But there's really nothing, and I was really hoping for something, but
Yeah, it would have been nice to see them like show up at the last minute as kind of like the unexpected help.
yeah, something
That would have been kind of a neat payoff.
Because remember when they were scrambling with when the Rahara was free with everybody? Yeah, I mean, they could have put him in there, but
there, or with the Blackguards, because obviously the Blackguards were kind of scared of them when they were on the moon earlier, right?
Something.
They're the ones who chased him off when they were attacking the Jedi. So yeah, it would have been neat to have them jump into the fray at the end. I didn't even think of that.
So I mean, yeah, that's what, like, this group, the opposition, like, such a great name, but it's like, okay, at the end of the day, they were just performers.
See, that's kind of why I was hoping that, since they were not fighters, and I was like, okay, they're definitely not going to go be backup or anything. I was like, oh, how cool if they performed for the palace at the end or something.
Yeah, cool, good idea.
I was like, why not? And then they never really showed up, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, or used a prank as a distraction, something that they specialized in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been cool. And I love that she surrendered in such theatrical robes to the point where Qui-Gon was like, wow, she looks nicer than Rail does.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, that's the way to do it in style, at least.
All right, ready for your next one?
Yeah, sure.
How did you feel about that Maz Kanata reference?
Oh my gosh. Maz Kanata. I was like, yeah, there it is. I was like, I could totally see Rael hanging out on Takodana. Just, yeah, at the castle. And then I'm
With
like,
his stick.
here comes with his death stick.
He was talking to a Padawan. He had a death stick.
I love him so much. I'm like, I'm glad he didn't die, but I know I'm sure we'll get into it later. But I was like, I kind of was a little disappointed with his arc. But yeah, I could totally picture that. I'm like, of course he's there. He's hanging out. Freaking Maz Kanata's gonna pop in. Of course she does. She didn't say anything. I'm kind of glad she didn't. But it was, yeah, it was kind of fun to see that.
Well, my question is, what kind of Jedi hangs out in a place like that? Are you in a mission, or is this what some certain Jedi do on their free time, kind of thing? But yeah, it was a good tribute to see something from our sequel trilogy. I was happy to just say that hearing the castle was there, and yeah, it's now I know probably Takodana is like supplier, or Maz Castle alone is a supplier of these death sticks that go around throughout the galaxy.
I mean, we know that Maz likes to party.
Oh,
She likes to party. So when I read that, I was like, yeah, this is really not a surprise. And Rail's not a typical Jedi. So I was like, okay, this makes perfect sense.
I believe it.
He kind of came off as like that, that stereotype about like the cool older cousin who like is smoking a cigarette in the driveway, leaning against her cool car. I was like, okay, Rail's trying to be the cool older cousin or something, because he's
totally
talking to
good.
like some teenager about actual issues while
Yeah, at a bar.
Smoke the death stick while
I think you do.
while he was smoking the death stick at a bar. Talking to this teenager that's panicking.
Oh, wow.
I loved the fact that Maz was referenced, and I was like, oh my gosh. I thought about the sexy Wookiees being there, and I was like, okay. What crazy stuff are we gonna do? Then it made me wonder, are the sexy Wookiees ever gonna see Rail?
Well, now I'm like, oh my gosh, the way he would have so much fun with our team. Like, I could just imagine how he would interact with each of us. Like, oh yeah, sometime in our little time travel adventures, we're gonna have to run into him. Or it's ambiguous what happens to him, right?
Yeah.
So who knows where he ends up? I mean, unless there are follow-up books to this that we haven't read yet that follow his story and the conclusion to it. But yeah, otherwise that would be an interesting character to explore.
Well, let's talk about that real quick. So I know we talked about wanting him to have a redemption arc and everything. So how did you feel about how it turned out for him?
I didn't like it. I really wanted him to have a moment where he could redeem himself by making the right choice this time or something. And instead, it all kind of played out in a way that was like, no, this all happened under your nose for the last 9 years or however long he'd been there. And you didn't notice anything. So you're kind of an idiot and a bad Jedi and a bad mentor. And you're mean to Qui-Gon. And at the end of the day, like he hasn't changed. I don't know if that he's even really learned anything except that he's just really bad at his job. Mm-hmm. And he's going to keep trying, which is good, I guess. But I was like, I don't know what happened here. Like it was not satisfying to me. Mm-hmm.
So is this our bonus question of the day?
Yeah, this is an added one I just thought of because we're talking about it. So
yeah, okay. Well, I'm not like completely satisfied, but it satisfied me enough. Where he didn't get that redemption that we all talked about in the past few weeks, but I think he got more than that. He got a lesson from somebody who is, younger than him, who is a younger Padawan than him, and kind of like when him and Rael, oh, wait, oh, excuse me, when Qui-Gon and Rael studied together, they, it was really, if you're thinking of, in a sense of master and apprentice, of age-wise, Dooku, Rael, and Qui-Gon. So Qui-Gon has to look up to two other people he can, um, whether it was, when they talked about how Qui-Gon, hey, how can we deal with our master? Those are things he can talk to about Rael. And then now that they're older, and then they're both, you would say, in the master kind of sense, I think Rael got his, um, instead of like not being lectured by Qui-Gon, he got guidance and got clarification. And I'll say this, hopefully this is not a question, in one of the future questions we have right now, that learning about, the light and the force, and then also like the prophecies. And I think I'll just end it with this. I think the lesson learned was when you read the after, um, and we see Dooku reach out to Rael. He obviously chooses the light, because that's what Qui-Gon spoke to him in the, before the, was it before the coronation or after the coronation? I can't remember, but um, that's the lesson he got from there, was that the force is not a game for somebody to win, whether it's light side or dark side. It's
Mhm.
just Qui-Gon's message to him was, I choose the light because it's the light and nothing else. And even I, read that, and I got so much from it, and I understood everything at that point of why Qui-Gon did what he did. So yeah, I'm glad Rael uh, got that back. And basically, I don't think it was a redemption to try to redeem Nim and the events that happened with Nim. It was really, how can Riel fully go back to the order after Nim?
I think it would have been interesting if he had chosen, or if taken up Dooku's offer and kind of gone
Mhm.
dark. I was like, oh,
I was hoping. Yeah.
that would kind of be an interesting route. I don't know if it's too cliche, too predictable, or too uninteresting. I couldn't tell if it would be more interesting to have him go through all this and still choose the light, or go through all this and just say, F it, like this isn't for me. I'm going to see what Dooku has to offer. I couldn't decide which would be more interesting.
Oh, sorry, did you want to go, Jess? Go ahead.
Sure. So I was thinking about that too. And I was like, yeah, I guess it makes sense that he would take it. But then I was thinking about it, and after everything that he kind of learned in the last few chapters, and even just his time on Pajal, I was like, I don't think he could ever fully be dark enough to actually be Dooku's apprentice again and to be on the dark side. I was like, even though the light side is not quite his speed, that kind of makes more sense. So even though I wanted him to die for redemption arc, because I'm a heartless, cruel person who loves angst, I kind of like that he's like, you know what, if they'll take me back, I want to try again. I was like, that's mature, because how many people can actually be like, I messed up, I want to try again, especially after that many years, that many mess ups, you're how old? And he still said, I want to try again. I really appreciated it, and I did not expect that. So I'm kind of happy with how it went. Not 100%, but I'm pleasantly surprised, and I liked it. All right, so ready for the next one?
Next official question, sure.
Ready.
How did you guys feel about that Fenry plot twist?
You guys are not gonna like my answer. I did not like it.
I figured you wouldn't, but I'm like, I need to hear her reasoning, because this is going to be interesting.
As a standalone thing, I like the idea of, that a character that is kind of unassuming at first, but is actually power hungry and crazy. But in all these weeks leading up to this, they kept describing this as almost like a Sherlock Holmes, where there's just like little breadcrumb clues here and there, and you're trying to figure out the mystery along with the characters. And then to have the answer be, it was actually this thing that there are very little clues towards, and it's a character that is completely the opposite of what we've presented her as all this time. So there's no way you could ever guess. I was like, it's a little anticlimactic. And the fact that nobody around her could tell, including Rael, who had spent so many years raising her. And I'm like, okay, so that means she would have had to have this innocent act since she was like 6 years old. You're telling me she planned this that long and was hiding it? And like, who even taught her about this other history that made her want to rule without the organization's influence and all that? Like, how in the world was she getting this influence from somewhere under Rael's nose, and he never caught on to the way she was? And then even Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan show up and spend time with her and never pick up on it. And then the fact that her plan, she's supposedly some little evil genius, and her plan was just to go badass crazy on her coronation day and burn it all down, as if that was going to work out for her planet and people. And I'm like, girl, if you're like this evil genius that's been planning this long, all you got to do is get coronated, then you are absolute queen until you sign this treaty that isn't going to be until later. So for that time in between, after you've been crowned, you're absolute queen. You can say, you know what, actually, I'm not signing that treaty. We're going to renegotiate, or you're going to get the F out of here. And we're still going to open up this lane. I'm going to start talking to the Republic directly now because I'm queen. And all she has to do is act like a monarch as soon as she becomes one. Maybe as crown princess she couldn't. Maybe when there was a regent in charge she couldn't. But all she had to do was wait till this coronation, and then she could do whatever she wanted to. She didn't have to be like this violent, bloody coup. Because if she's as smart as she's supposed to be, I guess, she would know that you can't just like declare war against this organization and then still get your hyperspace lane built and still get representation in the Republic and still get respected by everyone around you when you don't really have an army and you've been disrespecting your own citizens on the moon. Like, none of it made sense at that point. I thought everything was building to some really intricate, smart plan by this secret organization, and that they would have ties to this other thing. And instead it was just like some absolute nut crazy mindless psycho thing. And I was like, this came out of nowhere and makes no sense and isn't even a good plan. And it's from a character that like showed, I mean, if I think back on it, there's like a few instances where I'm like, okay, she did have this one moment where she sounded a little bit bloodthirsty, but that particular part of the book was kind of written from her point of view, or that she was the narrative character at that moment, and it was written also still very innocently, whereas we should have been in her brain, so we should have actually seen a little bit of maniacalness. So it was out of nowhere, and I didn't appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope I don't go all over the place with this answer. I was surprised when she got the dagger, the sword, whatever it was, stabbed the primes. Was it the prime?
Oh, the
Skykeeper, the Skykeeper.
Yeah.
So,
Skykeeper.
yeah, I was really surprised. I was like, wow, like. But then I also don't like crazy psycho characters like that, who there is a reasoning for a lot of the things she did. So I want to go back and kind of just, I kind of agree with you, Megan, but I just kind of want to answer maybe how I read it, thinking of almost close to those same questions.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as like, with everybody in her ear. So let's talk about Rael first, because that's where it all started. You know what happened? She went off on him, and that gave him his like, oh, I'm not gonna yell at you no more. That just like, where did this all come from? And this was not even at the coronation. This was when they were already in space and everything, where she gave Rael his wake up call kind of thing.
Mhm.
But as far as everybody else in there, oh, your best friend Katie, um, yeah, who can like think of just two were they teens but kids whatever they were if
Yeah.
they grew up together and try to plan things behind Riel's back. That's not her anymore. That's Katie, because Katie was so close with her, and even at the end of it we knew that they worked together on all of this. Yes, Katie did kind of flip, but then got her sentence in her way. But like, really, if you're gonna ask and get advice from somebody else, like, come on, you like you said, you're the queen, you should own up to that. And man, yeah, that really got me fired up a little bit. And then everybody else, like Captain Darren, Cole, who else, uh, I can't remember all the governors names and
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
but
The representatives.
just think of all of them not wanting to be able to give their say on everything. um and just kind of like, maybe she got so spoiled with everything. And again, it's not, I wish that this character didn't end up going that way. First of all, yeah, like, if she wanted to just do what you want, like, you were correct, like, yeah, go directly to the Republic, do your dealings there straight up. But it's the whole, it was her anger for Rael and what he was doing made her feel like uh, that she was not wanted. And I think this is what led up to her, doing that. But yeah, I was really surprised that, dude, the Skykeeper, I felt so bad for the Skykeeper. I
I
was
know,
like,
for like
Obi-Wan.
so many pages, I'm like, what did he do? And then she's like, shut up, you're the one who blah, blah. And I was like, okay, thank you for
Right,
justifying it. Because otherwise I was like,
right.
this guy's got nothing to do with anything.
And so, yeah, so I was just like, I was afraid for Obi-Wan's sake, because I was like, is the lightsaber gonna work?
Okay,
Is this the
wait,
part
side
that we're
note,
talking about?
we've had debates on whether a normal person can take apart and put together a lightsaber or if it has to be a Jedi. And now we know the
Mm,
answer.
Which
That
is
some
weird. 'Cause-
crazy 13-year-old girl who's seen it done once can replicate it. So
It's
there
just
we
so
go.
weird
Obi-Wan,
because,
man, come
like,
on.
because the Clone Wars TV show, it's canon. This is also new canon, but I'm just like, okay, it doesn't make sense because in this book they're talking about hand doing it, but then
Yeah.
in the show, multiple times it shows that a Jedi doesn't actually use their hands; they use the Force, and the pieces fly around. So when I read that, I was like, just a million times confused.
Yeah.
Because even so in this book, Obi-Wan did it by hand. In the Clone Wars, older Obi-Wan used the Force and woo, and I'm just like,
No, you can replicate it by watching it once. You could take it apart, put in a whole different crystal, put it back together, and it still works
it's so
somehow.
weird.
Like, I was
Yeah.
like, wait,
I mean, I'm sure that they probably told Claudia, like, hey, this is how you write this. But I'm just
maybe.
like, y'all, you have a team. Pick one.
All I know is now I'm free to do whatever I want in my stories. So thank you, Claudia.
Oh man.
Ronald, did you have more? Because I remembered one more thing.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
So now knowing that it was Fanry the whole time, and she had a cabal of people in on it too. So Darren and Katie, who I did call, but not in this way. But yeah. So that means that the Black Guard were actually the Royal Guard the whole time. So then I was like, so what were they even doing? Why were they making attacks on her and all the royal events and threatening the coronation ceremony? What
To
end
throw off
did that?
suspicion.
No, all it did was bring more Jedi into the situation. It actually drew attention to
I mean,
this.
maybe in her mind, she was like, oh, the other Jedi are probably going to be the same as Rael because they don't know Jedi. They only know him. So she's probably like, oh, they're going to be as clueless as this idiot. So,
But if you hadn't set up attacks and threatened the ceremony in the first place, nobody would have called any other Jedi. You could have done this whole plan flawlessly with no suspicion, no complication. Nobody would even be looking twice at the ceremony. Everything would have gone off as normal without extra security or anything. And then you could have stabbed your Skykeeper and gone crazy. Like,
Poor Skykeeper.
so thinking back, unless I'm completely missing something, and I may be, but I'm thinking back on it, and what is the purpose of forming an opposition group to make violent attacks on your own events? I don't know what they were accomplishing.
I mean, it kind of seemed helpful in the sense that if they were, still going after Fanry, or at least pretending to, like, you're not going to assume that this little girl has anything to do with it. You're just really they're attacking a kid.
But anything to do with what? The attacks? If there had been no
anything
attacks,
to do with her later plan about absolute monarchy.
But if there had been no attacks at all, nobody would have thought that anything was coming at all. If she had just, proceeded with preparations for the party and then and there was no drama around the event, then she would have gotten away with it a lot easier.
But then we wouldn't have had a Star Wars book.
I know, that's the point. And so I'm like, was this just for the sake of being more complicated in the beginning so that we would be trying to figure things out? Because then they don't, I don't know.
Or maybe they're just trying to blame all of the events that led up to everything to Circa Corporation.
Maybe, but they never tried to point a finger at them. If they had been trying to frame them so that they could be like, look at all this trouble that these guys, and they're trying to take over, they're trying to stop that would have been smarter. That would have, if they had been trying to cast suspicion on the corporation, then it would have served a purpose, and it would have kind of gotten the public prepared for this usurpation of power when she said, you know what, we're kicking them out. Look at all this trouble that we believe they've been causing. And then everyone would support her. But instead, it was just these random attacks that they were like, yeah, we don't know who's doing it. So they couldn't even make it bad press towards one party or another. Like, they didn't utilize the results of it to better her situation. So I was, when I was after it was revealed that it was Fanny, I was thinking back on these blackguards, and I was like, wait, so why were they even doing anything? So I don't know. That was my other revelation.
Well, they fooled Qui-Gon and they fooled us.
Yeah,
I know, and I don't like that. I don't like that Jedi are just absolute idiots in every book we've read so far. They can't figure anything out. They don't catch the easiest lies and manipulations and tricks for some reason. They're just completely oblivious.
They're still, well, these ones are still human, and even who was it? Qui-Gon said, you know what? I admit I did not pay attention to this part of her Force signature, her Force reading, whatever. So I do like that he's like, yeah, I could have done better, and he pointed out how. But I mean, just reading like this book alone, kind of showed like, the Jedi, everyone thinks of them as super cool, badass, but at the same time, like,
because they're
just human. Like, they make mistakes. They are not fortune tellers, mind readers, everything. They have an advantage over us normies, but it's not like they're gods that can do everything. And I kind of like that they mess up, because I'm like, okay, it shows that, they're not these powerful special gods that people make them out to be. They're just people with enhanced abilities.
Yeah, I guess
For a fact, I'm not a normie. I am a Jedi. But
So
like you were saying with humans.
Yeah.
Them being human, I think what it shows us is they clearly didn't, look at the first rule of the Jedi code, which is there's no emotion, there's only peace. They clearly had so much emotion blind them throughout this book, whether and towards the end they talk a lot more about love for your mentor, love for your Padawan, love for your master, is okay, but it also plays too much emotion in the roles of the Jedi. And yes, they're only human. So um, I guess what it was trying to tell me, or what I got out of reading, Jedi's and emotions are, you just you can't think emotionally. There you go. You cannot think emotionally.
I mean,
Yeah,
You always have to be.
that's why they say attachments are forbidden, because
exactly.
even Rail was like, I was blinded. I was attached to this little kid, and look at what happened. And
Mhm.
Anakin, stupid Anakin. I mean, I love him, but God, your attachment. So, I mean, it shows like, you can have emotion, but you can't be emotional about things
Yeah,
because you're just gonna let
It
that
blinds
blind
you.
you.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree.
Yeah, so that's why not just in this book but like in other books and in the shows, they give examples of, here's how you can feel your emotions without letting it blind you, but you have to be actively aware, because then there's those times, like Rail and his attachment, where they're like, I just love this kid so much, or I just want to do right by, whoever. And then, oh, look, I'm completely blinded. So you just have to be constantly aware of your feelings, your actions based on those feelings and all of that. So I really did appreciate that he was like, yeah, you know what? I messed up because of my attachment. And that Qui-Gon was like, I was looking for these feelings, but I wasn't thinking about all the things out there that I could have.
Preach. Come on, preach.
I'm just like, come on, like any normal human being with a little bit of intuitiveness would be able to see a psychopath when they meet one, I would think.
Not always. A lot of people miss them.
But people who are specially trained to be able to read other people's intentions, I figure like even subconsciously, even if they're not actively trying to search her feelings, like they pick up on it every now and then and be like, wait a minute. Like, do you feel something? Like if you got 3 daggum Jedi around her all the time, not a one of them was like had any suspicion at any point where they were like, something's weird. So I don't know. I was like, again, guys, because in the last, maybe it's just Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. Maybe they're just bad. Because the last book we read, Queen's Peril, the teenage girls in the royal house were going on about how dumb these Jedi are, and how they can't figure anything out, and that all these little girls know better than them. And here we are in the same situation. I'm like, guys, okay, when we're dealing with a queen, let's be extra suspicious that she's not what she says she is. Okay, maybe that's the lesson here.
No, I'll just go back over it briefly. I think the 3 Jedi that were there were too consumed in themselves, in what Riel was doing. They were investigating the wrong thing, and their focus, the mandate that was sent, was was for the Queen to sign this treaty. But if you're going to sign the treaty and you're going to find other evidence about what is going on with this treaty, you don't start questioning people, you question the focus of this coronation. And so a lot of the focus it went a different way from her, and it was just they were
You
arguing
were
too much.
distracted.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
too distracted with so many different things, even up to the what is it, the jewel thieves. It's like they got into their lives, and see that, you know a Jedi's mission, I think, okay, it's, yes, you can make friends with those two, but at the same time, getting them into trouble, knowing that you were going to get Rahara into trouble, like, you should have known that, because then now your focus isn't like, from a Qui-Gon perspective, he's trying to keep it all together at this point. His mind's all over the place. His one mind's in Real, everybody else, like the Queen, and then he's still trying to figure out his Padawan. So, man, he really had a lot on his plate, and the focus should have just been on Fanry the whole time. And we probably would have got to that conclusion, way quicker. But all of this led up to that, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the whole time, but maybe once or twice, because it's not like Qui-Gon was so distracted that he wasn't doing it all, because we have a couple specific instances where he tells the narrator tells what he is reading about people. So he reads Darren and he can tell this guy's super dedicated. He is really committed to Fanry and seems very like he would never do anything to hurt her. I can tell that. He reads Rahara and Pax and he's like, they act a certain way, but I can tell they've got a bigger part to play, that deep down they're really good. I can tell that they kind of have feelings. Like he is using his intuition to or force sensitivity to read about people, everybody except Fanry. And I'm like, why wouldn't you at least once or twice around her, especially considering she is this crux that has so influenced your friend and fellow Jedi Rael, that you wouldn't at some point try to get a read on her, because she is the pivot point in all of this. And it just seems like a dereliction of duty not to spend a little attention on her when he in fact does with other characters. So it's not like he wasn't doing it at all because he was so distracted. He just never does it on her.
It kind of makes sense to me though that he didn't do it on her, because time and time again, like this happens so often. The adults underestimate kids, teenagers, and they're just like, whatever, you're little, you don't know anything, or you don't know better, when the truth is like kids and teens are really smart. So to me it made sense that here's this adult, there's these big issues, and he's like, well, she's not even queen, she's some 13-14-year-old, like I don't have, a lot of the adults just kind of brushed over her. And I was like, it kind of makes sense because that's what a lot of adults like in our world do. So I was like, I guess I can see why he wouldn't, use his force abilities to check in on her feelings and all that.
Maybe. I mean, if she was just some kid, but
I mean, that's how they kept portraying her. Like in the different points of views, they just kept talking about her like she's just some kid. So it made sense that they were like, okay, whatever, she's just a kid. Rael's been in charge anyway. There's these other adults that can help be in charge. So it made sense that they were just going to brush over her.
Maybe, I don't know, except she was the mission. They were there to protect her. She was the one who was going to have all the power in a couple days. She was the one who needed to sign this treaty. He saw her in his vision as the one to protect. So there was a lot that revolved around her
Protecting,
that they
but not
should have
suspecting.
taken a closer look. Well, not even, it didn't need to be suspecting, but they should have watched her more closely, or even for the purpose of protecting, been like, okay, we need to figure out everybody she talks to, everywhere she goes, even things she's hiding from Rael because maybe they're too close. Like if I was the Jedi and this was the mission, I would be like, we need to know everything about her to make sure she's not getting taken advantage of and that she's safe, because she is just a child. She needs this protection. So I need to be more involved. So I wouldn't ignore her because she was a child, because she's a very important child. Even if you were going into it with like no suspicion, it would still be like, I need to be on her 24/7 or have somebody watching everything she does.
See, now you're thinking like Padawan Anakin in episode 2. And I like that.
Gonna have R2 in there with a camera.
You're right. You have to even use her as bait at times.
Use her as bait.
You have to
draw out those opposition. Yeah, that's it.
See, Anakin knew along. Qui-Gon knew Anakin would know all along.
Exactly. Anakin was onto something.
You have to be, You can't give him an inch. Give him an inch and they'll take everything.
Overkill.
Oh man, stay on target.
Right.
I mean, the last question was just going to be, what are your overall thoughts? But I think we covered that throughout the episode.
Oh man, I'd love to go back on it. Let's go back on it. Just very brief, because I do want to end off saying what I'm going to say about this book.
Yeah, go for it.
Man.
Okay, well, one thing we didn't cover, what about the slave revolt, which I kind of predicted, but not in that way. I was a little surprised and disappointed, and not just because I think everything should happen the way I predict it, but that Rahara just went back into the routine and was like, the best way to survive is just to forget that I was ever free to begin with. And I was like, oh, I thought for sure she would fight. I thought for sure she would like really not accept it again, and she did.
Well, there was nothing for her to do. I mean, she already knew the life, she lived it, and at that point she's like, I escaped once, what are the chances of escaping again? I mean,
No,
really.
that's it. Like,
Yeah.
just die trying. Like, do not go back to that, especially knowing that it's going to be worse than before because now you're being punished.
Mhm.
And then when Pax shows up and she's like, maybe we should all just revolt. And it's not like there were any guards there that Pax needed to sneak by and that they needed to overthrow. They just all kind of were like, well, let's just grab stuff and start smashing stuff and then get out of here. I'm like, wait a minute, you could have done that the whole time. What? What on earth? Just because Pax is there and is like, I've got a ship to get us out, was her motivation to be like, oh wait, maybe I should do something. I'm like, wait, that was it? Like,
Well,
she
think
could
about
have
it.
just
If-
looked around and been like, guys, friggin' let's mutiny, let's take over this piece of junk, let's get out of here.
The way I kind of interpret it was, they could have done that, but then what? More circus ships would have come, and then Pijal protecting them because that's all they figured. But if Pax is there, she's like, okay, something is going on that he's here to help me, which means we can probably all do something at this point.
Not
'Cause
necessarily. He would have
if-
said, I've got my ship.
if I were her
Yeah.
and it was just us slaves, I'd think the same thing as her. I'd be like, okay, we could revolt, but this is one ship. They're just gonna come blow us to bits or whatever, just like back on the moon when the slaves would have just been collateral damage. It makes sense that protect yourselves as much as you can. And then if I were her and I see Pax, I'd be like, he's here, he has a ship, the Jedi are probably with him because this dude's not going to come alone. I know him. He's not going to come alone for me. I don't matter enough. But someone is here with him. Something big enough is going on that we can all revolt. That's how I interpret it. I was like, I'd feel the same way because you don't want to just revolt and everyone just get killed because then you started it. You got all these innocent people killed.
But she pretty much admits that at some point. She's like, they're all fighting, and then she's like, okay, Pax, let's go, knowing that he's got a ship, because I'm sure he's told her that I've got a ship. It's not exactly going to fit all the slaves that they're down there with. And she thinks or narrates, she says she knows that they stamp out revolts pretty quickly and it's a big bloody affair. And then she freaking runs off with Pax, leaving all these people to die. I'm like, what on earth, girl? Like, you knew that this is the response that happens to revolt, so why did you start one? Unless it was like, I'd rather cause a bunch of chaos and go out in a blaze of glory than live the rest of my life as a slave. In which case, you should have just done it in the first place. And all these people were willing to, also not having any idea that there was going to be rescue, or that their ship was about to get blown up anyway by this incoming royal cruiser. Like, all of these situations they wouldn't have known.
Behind the scenes, he could have explained it to her, but to save time, it wasn't actually written out.
But I do assume also, yeah, that he explained it to her, that as soon as they met up, that he was probably like, I got my ship here, like, one of the Jedi's here. Also, why leave Obi-Wan on the ship? Like, bring him. How did Obi-Wan
Pax?
But how did he agree to let him go alone into this craziness, and that you bring a Jedi, and you're just like, here, wait on the ship. You're the getaway driver. What? Like, no, I want him with me. Like, I'm not going down there by myself. Like, bring the stinking Jedi. You guys can get back to the ship together, and then one of you can fly out. Like, why does he sit there? Oh, I hated it. The whole plan was stupid, and it didn't fit hard.
He was raised by droids. He doesn't know better.
But Obi-Wan should know better.
Yeah, but then again, he's
and if anything, he should know better because it's the logical thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they couldn't get involved. The Jedi were, there was a point where I think I read where Qui-Gon said, there's going to be a way we're going to be able to satisfy everything without, getting into trouble, because that wasn't their mandate to go save the slaves, to save Rahara. So even Obi-Wan, whether he had his lightsaber fully working or not, couldn't get involved in that and just work the mission from that point. From, I don't have a weapon, I'm in a weapon, But yeah, I believe Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon couldn't directly, and that's why you had to send to Pax for that.
But he was okay with blowing up the defenses and the droid property in the other ship.
I forgot about the lightsaber thing. I was like, wait, what the hell is his colon crystal gonna do? He doesn't have the actual kyber crystal.
It does
Yeah,
something, I guess.
if you're a Jedi and you're not directly trying to help that situation, the Rara Pack situation, yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, you can just
you can go all out and
destroy property.
you're a Jedi. Come on, like there you are the law. So I mean, the peace is being what you call it. The peace is being not kept. So in order for Obi-Wan to do his job and without a lightsaber, I'm gonna keep the peace this way.
Oh, that was
Can
another
we-
thing. This stupid battle in the sanctuary, and everyone's like, "Oh no, they've got the lightsaber proof thing." And I'm like, "Didn't we just have a whole conversation how you don't need a lightsaber? You've got the Force. How did Obi-Wan not use the Force on Darren in 2 seconds, or Qui-Gon
Yeah,
for that matter, or
I did too.
Rael? How are they all standing around like?" Oh no, what do we do? It's a standoff, and this guy's got a gun pointed at this person. This guy's got a
Well, Qui-Gon and Rael, I think they were too far to defend, is what Qui-Gon said. So
too
he couldn't really
far.
with the was it to captain. So the captain and the Fanry, they're too far to defend for that. And then so I think Obi-Wan, without having his proper weapons, um also what was it? He did, because that came to my mind too. Why didn't you force push both of them?
Yeah,
Somehow. But to me, I think Obi-Wan's focus, whatever it may be, you can say to keep the Skykeeper calm. I think that was it for me. I don't think he like. I was like, come on, use the force push.
yeah.
But I think it was because he was too. I need to protect the Skykeeper at all costs.
I
That's
disagree
my
because he
mandate.
was standing in front of him, but he was focused on
Yeah.
Darren. It says he was watching him the whole time for an opening.
Right.
And
Right.
Jedi have to be able to split their attention. And it wasn't like he was actively providing medical aid or something to where he was distracted. He was just
Mhm.
standing between them. And all you need to do is force nudge that blaster over a couple centimeters, and he's not going to hit you. Like, you can do that faster than he can fire. So yeah, I was
I
very confused why nobody used the Force in that whole situation. Or even Fanry and Katie are on the cables heading up toward the ship, and Qui-Gon's like, I could jump on one, but then they'd cut it. And I'm like, Force yank them off the cable. Like, Force pull them back. Why are you letting them get away?
well, if you force them, right, and they end up dying, then you can't investigate what you need to find out of what their motives were.
You've got Darren
If
already.
that were to happen. But
And who says they
then he
die
doesn't
if
have
you
the
can
full.
force levitate them off of that, yank them off of that
He was a
cable?
pawn, though. The captain was a pawn in all of it. So
Because what if like going off what Ronald said, what if Fanry had died, being pulled off, and all they had was Darren, but he didn't fully know the extent like her or Katie would have, because he was a pawn, so he was in on some of it, but they wouldn't know how much he was in on.
yeah.
How
And
much
so
Fanry wouldn't have died though.
huh?
Fanry
Hmm?
wouldn't have died though. You could easily pull her
Just
back
shoot
off
her
the
in the
cable
arm.
and lower her down, or even if she hits the ground and is paralyzed or something, like, she's still alive. Like, you're not gonna let her get away. She's freaking murdering people, and she just is about to, has already threatened to go blow up a ship with a bunch of innocents on it. Like, how he's just gonna stand there? They're chasing her down anyway, and they're gonna fire on her, presumably. I don't know. The whole thing, I was like, none of this is making any sense to me.
Well, just to go back to the Obi-Wan part, like, remember when we were talking about prophecies and we were thinking, like, who would be down? Like, would Qui-Gon be, and I pictured it as the way I said it last week. I thought it was going to be Qui-Gon down in a blocking form.
Okay, yeah.
But it was really, to me, when I just read it, I pictured it not as Qui-Gon, but as Obi-Wan at this point. And he's, he's holding the Skykeeper in his arms because the Skykeeper, I think it had said like he couldn't stand up, or he had to stay down. So it's really that he was the one on the floor, kind of thing. That's so I pictured that in my head while reading that part. But let's just fast forward. I'm just gonna end it on what I was gonna say. Man, I waited till the end till I said there was gonna be a lesson, some lesson, but I didn't know that there was gonna be a lesson for even somebody like me, a reader, a fan of the Jedi kind of thing. And the lesson that being is the one where Qui-Gon says, "I choose the light," and why he chose the light. We also know why Qui-Gon now um, did not take the seat in the Jedi Council, because his saying was the Force was different for him. And I think this can apply to many different fans of Star Wars, whether it's directly or indirectly. Like, the Force can change for you and this fandom. And and I said it could speak for everybody, but it really spoke to me. And I said, oh, I can look at it that way, that the Force is not that for me in this fandom, it just changes. It's just the Force is just changing me in its way. So, man, I learned a new lesson, and I took a lot from the ending of that lesson, and I'm gonna apply it now, as a fan to this, to this fandom.
That was a really good quote. I had to write it down.
I know, that was a good one.
Just because I loved it so much. We don't choose the light because we want to win. We choose it because it is the light. And I was like, damn, that's powerful.
Yep.
I knew I loved Hippie Man for a reason.
Man.
And my Qui-Gon doll over there just chilling. And I was like, yes. Aww. When I read it, I looked at my toy and I was like, I really want to open the box and just hug it.
Good old Qui-Gon.
Oh man, what a book.
But,
you guys are right though. This author, man, really I wouldn't say emotional, but yeah, this was the first one where I don't tear up. I more tear up in movies than in books, but this one, it like said something where my heart kind of like just kind of like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, you felt.
Even to the with him and Obi-Wan, when they first, when they went hand to hand and knew, hey, we're gonna be partners in all this moving forward. I was like, whoa. It's just, yeah, all of that ending, that it sold me.
I mean, this is why, like, I was telling Megan before we started, I love Claudia Gray so much. Just something about her writing. Don't get me wrong, I like the other new canon writers, but I think she definitely has to be my favorite. And I told Megan, I was like, oh, I was waiting for the heartbreak, because every time I read her book, I always end up like some kind of heartbroken.
She always crushes you somehow.
She breaks your heart into a million pieces after making it feel so good. I love you, Claudia. Thank you. But that after, I was like, oh,
dude, she saved it till the very end this time, and then gotcha. You thought you were gonna make it out of this book, but no.
God damn it! But no, Claudia Gray, amazing as always. I love your books. I love your writing. Pax and Rahara. I was like, yes, finally. Slow burn. God, that's a slow burn. Oof. That's a slow burn if there was ever any. I was so happy. So Claudia, if you're watching this, just please write a book on them. I don't care how boring and mundane it is that they're arguing over like hollow films. I just want to read more about them.
Side Adventures of the Jewel Thieves. I love it.
Please, for one of your biggest fans. Claudia Gray, Literary Bay, I'm counting on you.
Literary Bay. Yeah, it was a good one. I've got new appreciation for Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and yeah, you'll just never look at that funeral scene again the same way.
Definitely.
Oh, I cried reading that. It was like 4 a.m, and I was like, I can't put this book down. And I just started crying. My dogs are looking at me like, you freak, go to bed. And I'm just like,
Yep. And then some great new original characters that I would love to see more of. So if they're out there in comics or other books or something, I look forward to re-encountering some of them. That would be
Yeah.
great. Otherwise, that was it. That was the end of Master and Apprentice. So after this, we've got a whole new book to start. Jasmine, do you want to let us know?
So we're going to be starting Death Star by Michael Reeves and Steve Perry. Sorry, I don't have a cover. Our first week, we will be reading chapters 1 through 15.
Awesome. So yeah, on to new book, new era, and no Jedis maybe. I don't know. Sorry, Ronald.
It's okay.
We'll
I
see.
had plenty in this book.
You had a lot of Jedi in this book.
I
That's
got-
You
true.
got your
Jedi
Jedi
fix.
fix.
Got
You
it.
did. All right. Well, thank you for reading with us, for concluding another book, for concluding another episode of the Sexy Wookiee Squadron book club. And we look forward to seeing the adventures on the Death Star next week. So for this week, that's it. Sexy Wookiees out. Sexy,
Sexy
Wookiees.
Take off.